The massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador John Carter walked through them with steady steps. His black diplomatic uniform was perfect, every button polished. Behind him, Captain Lisa Monroe followed in her naval dress whites. They were the only two humans in a room filled with beings from 17 different star systems. The chamber itself was a wonder of alien architecture. The walls were made of living crystal that changed color with the emotions of those inside. Right now they glowed an angry red. The ceiling stretched up nearly 100 feet, disappearing into shadows. In the center of the room, representatives from each species sat in a circle. Some floated in tanks of liquid. Others stood on multiple legs. A few had no physical form at all, just clouds of energy contained in special fields. John had been here many times before. For 5 years he had worked to build friendships between Earth and the other species. He had shared human medicine that cured diseases. He had given them agricultural techniques that ended famines. He had always smiled, always been patient, even when they treated humans like children who had just learned to walk. Today was different. Today the chamber was hostile. The Zephrani Prime Speaker rose from its seat. The creature stood 12 feet tall on 6 insect-like legs. Its forearms moved as it spoke, and its voice sounded like grinding metal. The human called John Carter will explain why his species has not yet agreed to our terms. John remained calm. He had learned long ago that showing anger to the Zephrani was seen as weakness. Prime Speaker, 3 weeks ago, your fleet destroyed our colony on Kepler 442b. 12,000 humans died. Men, women, and children who were building a peaceful settlement. They were farmers and scientists, not soldiers. They were trespassers, the Prime Speaker replied. Its compound eyes reflected John's image 1,000 times. That system belongs to the Zephrani Empire. We gave you warning to leave. You did not listen. Lisa's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Through the neural implant they shared, John could feel her rage like a fire. The colony had included her younger brother. He had been a teacher, working with alien children to build the first interspecies school. Now he was space dust. We had a legal claim to that planet, John said. The Galactic Council approved our settlement 30 years ago. You had no right to attack. A gurgling laugh came from the Korvax representative, a blob of semi-solid flesh that constantly shifted shape. Rights? Humans speak of rights? You are infants in this galaxy. You have been in space for only 60 of your years. The Korvax have traveled the stars for 3,000 years. The Zephrani for 5,000. You have no rights except those we choose to give you. John nodded slowly. He had expected this. So you're saying might makes right? The strong take what they want? Now the human understands, the Prime Speaker said. Its mandibles clicked in what John knew was amusement. Your species is weak. You have never won a single military engagement. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. You waste resources on hospitals and schools instead of warships. Accept our offer. Become a protectorate of the Zephrani Empire. We will defend you, and in return, you will serve us. Serve? John asked. You mean become slaves? We prefer the term protected workers, the Prime Speaker said. You will mine asteroids for us. You will grow food for us. You will build our cities. In exchange, we will not destroy your homeworld as we did your colony. The threat hung in the air like poison. Several other species representatives shifted uncomfortably. The Altarians, peaceful traders, looked away. The Centauri, who had always been friendly to humans, seemed troubled. But none spoke up. Fear of the Zephrani kept them silent. John reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. It was no bigger than a coin. Before I give our answer, I want to show you something. He pressed a button and a hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth, blue and green and beautiful. This is our home, John said. For 2 million years our ancestors lived there. It tried to kill us every day. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Volcanoes that blocked out the sun. Diseases that killed millions. Predators with teeth like knives. We had no claws to fight with. No armor to protect us. No poison to defend ourselves. We were weak, just as you, say. The hologram changed, showing early humans hunting a mammoth. But we learned. We made tools. We made fire. We worked together. The predators that hunted us. We drove them to extinction or tamed them as pets. The ice ages? We survived them. The diseases? We found cures. Now the hologram showed human history. Wars, yes, but also art, music, science, exploration. We fought each other for thousands of years. We built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. But we also learned to make peace. We learned that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. The Prime Speaker's wings buzzed impatiently. This history lesson is pointless. Give us your answer. John looked around the room, meeting the eyes or optical organs of every representative. For 30 years, humans have come to you in peace. We have shared our medicine, our food, our knowledge. We have asked for nothing but friendship. You have seen our merchant ships, our hospital ships, our research vessels. You think this is all we are? He paused, letting the silence build. Let me tell you what you haven't seen. You haven't seen the shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt. You haven't seen the weapons laboratories on Mars. You haven't seen the million soldiers training in secret bases. You haven't seen what humans do when someone murders our children. The Korvax representative bubbled with laughter. Empty threats from a weak species. John smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We warned you that Earth was holding back. We chose to show you our peaceful face. But peace is a choice, and you have taken that choice away from us. He lifted the communication device to his mouth. Admiral Susan Blake, this is Ambassador Carter. Authorization code, Prometheus Unbound. Release all restrictions. Repeat, all restrictions are lifted. The response came immediately through the chamber's speakers. Understood, Ambassador. The fleet is moving. Estimated time to Zephrani Prime, 72 hours. The Prime Speaker shot to its feet. What fleet? Our sensors show nothing. That's because you weren't looking in the right places, Lisa spoke for the first time. While you were watching our trade routes, we were building. While you were laughing at our weakness, we were learning your strengths and weaknesses. Every ship you let dock at your stations was scanning. Every diplomat was a spy. Every gift we gave had a second purpose. John turned to leave, then stopped. You want to know the difference between humans and you? You evolved as warriors. Fighting is all you know. We evolved as survivors. We know when to fight, when to hide, when to wait, and when to strike. You thought our kindness was weakness. You're about to learn it was strategy. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Zephrani demanded answers. The Korvax threatened immediate retaliation. The smaller species panicked. But John and Lisa walked out calmly. As they reached their shuttle, Lisa finally spoke freely. Think they'll surrender? John shook his head. No. They've been the dominant power too long. They can't imagine losing. He looked back at the council building. They're about to learn what Earth learned long ago. The most dangerous enemy isn't the strongest one. It's the one with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Their shuttle lifted off, heading for the human fleet that was already emerging, from hiding places throughout the solar system. The war hadn't started with weapons fire. It had started 30 years ago when humans decided to prepare for the worst, while hoping for the best. Now hope was dead, and the galaxy would learn why. Earth's children had survived when so many other species on their homeworld had not. Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution. Through the massive viewports, she could see Neptune's blue surface far below. For 15 years, this ship had hidden here in the dark, powered down to avoid detection, waiting. Now, lights began to flicker on across its 2-kilometer length. Weapon systems hummed to life. Engines that had been cold for so long began to warm. All stations report ready, Admiral, said Commander Jake Patterson. He was her second in command, a man who had spent 20 years preparing for this day. The crew is eager to move. Susan nodded. She was 53 years old, with gray streaking through her black hair. She had joined the Navy when humans first reached the stars, back when they had only 12 ships. Now she commanded 200 vessels, though the galaxy knew about none of them. "Open a channel to all ships," she ordered. The communication officer, Lieutenant Amy Chen, worked her console. "Channel open, Admiral." Susan took a breath. "All ships, this is Admiral Blake. Today we show the galaxy who we really are. For 30 years we've hidden our strength. We've let them think we're weak, peaceful, harmless. We did this because we hoped for real peace. That hope died with our colony on Kepler 4482b. Today, we stop hiding." She paused, knowing that 20,000 men and women were listening across the fleet. Many of you lost family on that colony. Brothers, sisters, children, parents. The Zephrani killed them without warning, without mercy. They think we'll roll over and accept slavery. They're wrong. Today, humanity goes to war. Not because we want to, but because we must. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. And remember, we are the children of Earth. We don't lose. Across the solar system, hidden ships began to reveal themselves. Near Mars, what looked like a mining station split apart, revealing 6 destroyers. In the asteroid belt, dozens of asteroids turned out to be camouflaged cruisers. Behind Jupiter's moons, an entire battle group powered up. Captain Helen Rodriguez commanded the USS Vengeance, one of humanity's newest battleships. She watched as her ship's stealth coating retracted, revealing armor plating 3 feet thick. "Drop the mask," she told her crew. "Let them see what we really built." The transformation was remarkable. What the galaxy had thought were cargo haulers were actually reconnaissance ships. Passenger liners were troop transports. Even the hospital ships, while actually functioning as hospitals, had hidden weapon systems that could defend themselves, and others. On Trade Station Harmony 7, which orbited between Earth and Mars, Captain Danny Thompson was having an interesting conversation with a Zephrani merchant captain. The insectoid alien had been gloating about humanity's upcoming subjugation when Danny received the authorization code. "I'm sorry, Captain Zekth, but I need to inform you that your ship is now impounded," Danny said calmly. The Zephrani's compound. Eyes widened. "What? On what authority? This is a neutral trade station." Danny smiled. "Not anymore. By order of the Earth Defense Force, this station is now a military installation. Your ship's weapons have already been disabled by the nanobots. We put in your fuel supplies 6 months ago. You can surrender, or you can try to fight with no weapons, no shields, and no engines." The same scene played out across human space. Every alien ship suddenly found itself helpless. The maintenance crews they had trusted were actually military, engineers. The fuel they had bought was laced with controlled nanobots. The friendly dock workers were trained soldiers. Back on the Retribution, Susan watched the tactical display as her fleet formed up. "Jake, remember the war games we ran 10 years ago? The ones where we were outnumbered 50-1? We won every time once we stopped playing by their rules," Jake replied. "Exactly. The galaxy fights wars like ancient knights. They line up, they follow rules, they have honor codes. We're about to teach them how humans fight. Dirty, smart, and to win." Kirsimai, first test came sooner than expected. A Zephrani patrol fleet of 12 ships jumped into the system, responding to their merchant captain's distress call. They immediately sent an arrogant message demanding humanity's surrender. Susan didn't even respond with words. She nodded to her weapons officer, Lieutenant Maria Garcia. "Fire Solution Alpha. Let's show them what kinetic weapons can do." The galaxy had abandoned kinetic weapons centuries ago. Energy weapons were cleaner, more elegant. But humans had learned that a simple piece of metal moving at 20% the speed of light didn't care about energy shields designed to disperse laser fire. The railguns on the Retribution fired tungsten rods no bigger than telephone poles. They punched through the Zephrani shields like paper and tore their ships in half. The battle lasted 4 minutes. All 12 Zephrani ships were destroyed. Not a single human vessel was scratched. "Send the footage to every news network in the galaxy," Susan ordered. "Let them see what happened." Meanwhile, Captain Lisa Monroe was leading a strike force toward the Zafrani forward base in the Alpha Centauri system. Her ship, the USS Defiance, was smaller than most, built for speed and stealth. As they approached the base, she spoke to her crew. The Zafrani have held this base for 300 years. They think it's impregnable. 20 defense platforms, 50 ships, and 1 million soldiers. We have 30 ships. She grinned. They don't stand a chance. Instead of attacking directly, Lisa did something the Zafrani never expected. She ordered her ships to jump past the base, then release their cargo. Thousands of small objects spread out in space behind the base. They looked like debris. "What are those?" asked her tactical officer, Lieutenant Katie Anderson. "Mines," Lisa said. "But not just any mines. These are smart mines. They'll wait until the Zafrani ships try to escape, then they'll swarm them." She then ordered her ships to attack from the front, but weakly, making it look like they were struggling. The Zafrani, confident in their superiority, sent most of their fleet out to crush the human force. That's when Lisa sprang her trap. Her struggling ship suddenly revealed powerful weapons and began destroying the Zafrani vessels. When the enemy tried to retreat to their base, they flew right into the minefield. The base surrendered within 6 hours. Back on Earth, the population watched in amazement as humanity's true military might was revealed. Children who had grown up thinking humans were the weakest species in the galaxy suddenly learned their parents and grandparents had been building a war machine in secret. President Robert Clark addressed the planet from his office in Geneva. "My fellow humans, today we reveal our true face to the galaxy. We are not warmongers, we are not conquerors, but we are not victims either. When we went to the stars, we hoped for peace. We still do. But hope is not a strategy. Preparation is. And we have been preparing." In space, the war continued to escalate. The Zafrani, shocked by their early losses, called for their allies. The Korvax Empire and 3 smaller species joined them. They assembled a fleet of 500 ships to crush humanity once and for all. Admiral Blake received the intelligence with grim satisfaction. "They're doing exactly what we expected, gathering in one place, planning one massive battle to end the war quickly." "Should we meet them head-on?" Jake asked. Susan shook her head. "No. We're going to do what humans do. Best, we're going to cheat. Contact Captain Alex Brown in Cyber Warfare Division. Tell him it's time to activate the virus." For 20 years, human software engineers had been selling helpful programs to alien species. Navigation software, communication systems, entertainment, programs. All of them had hidden code, dormant and waiting. When Alex activated the virus, every Zafrani ship suddenly found its navigation system showing false data. They thought they were jumping to attack Earth. Instead, they jumped directly into the sun. 200 Zafrani ships were destroyed in an instant. The rest, panicking, retreated in chaos. The galaxy watched in shock and growing fear. Humanity had gone from perceived weakness to dominant force in less than a week. They hadn't just shown military might. They had shown patience, planning, and ruthlessness that no one had expected. As reports poured in of human victories across multiple systems, one message became clear. Earth had never been weak. Earth had been waiting. And now there was no mercy in war. 3 weeks had passed since humanity revealed its true military strength. The galaxy watched in horror as humans demonstrated a type of warfare that broke every civilized rule of combat. General Paul Martinez stood in the command center on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. The room was filled with screens showing battles across 20 star systems. His staff of 50 officers coordinated the most complex military operation in human history. "Sir, the Zafrani are requesting another ceasefire," reported Colonel Jennifer Smith. She was his ground forces commander, a woman who had spent 15 years studying every military mistake aliens had made. "They want to discuss terms." Paul didn't look up from the tactical display. "What happened to the last 3 ceasefires they requested?" "They used them to regroup and rearm, sir. Then they attacked our medical ships." "Then we know what their word is worth," Paul said. "Continue all operations. No mercy, no pause, no negotiations until they surrender unconditionally." The difference between human warfare and galactic warfare had become terrifyingly clear. Other species fought battles. Humans fought wars. When the Korvax attacked a human mining colony, they expected humans to respond by attacking a Korvax mining colony. Instead, humans destroyed every Korvax fuel depot within 50 light years, leaving their entire fleet stranded in space. Captain Danny Thompson led the ground invasion of Zephrani Prime. The planet was supposed to be impossible to invade. It had weather that could kill most species in minutes, with acid rain and temperatures that fluctuated by 100 degrees between day and night. The Zephrani had evolved there and thought no one else could survive it. They had never heard of Death Valley, Antarctica, or the Amazon rainforest. Earth had trained humans to survive anywhere. Danny's unit, the Gray Ghosts, had landed in secret 2 weeks ago. They didn't attack military bases. Instead, they destroyed power plants. They poisoned water supplies with harmless but terrifying chemicals that turned the water blood red. They hacked into communication systems and played recordings of human victories on repeat. Day 15 on Zephrani Prime, Danny reported to General Martinez. The civilian population is in full panic. Their military has to spend more time controlling riots than fighting us. We've taken 3 cities without firing a shot. The populations fled when they heard we were coming. The psychological warfare was perhaps the most terrifying aspect. Humans understood fear in a way that other species didn't. The Zephrani were used to standing battle, warrior against warrior. They were not prepared for enemies they never saw, for attacks that came from nowhere, for the constant paranoia that humans cultivated. Lieutenant Katie Anderson perfected the art of breaking enemy morale. Her unit never killed anyone directly. Instead, they would sneak into enemy camps and rearrange things, move supplies, change signs, leave human food in their kitchens. The message was clear: we can get to you anywhere, anytime. It's not about killing them, Katie explained to her squad. It's about making them afraid to sleep. A tired enemy makes mistakes. A frightened enemy surrenders. In space, Admiral Susan Blake demonstrated another human innovation: economic warfare. While alien species focused on military targets, humans targeted infrastructure. They didn't destroy shipyards. They destroyed the factories that made the tools to build ships. They didn't attack food supplies. They destroyed the transportation systems that moved food. Within a month, 3 Zephrani colony worlds were experiencing famine, not because humans had touched their farms, but because they couldn't move the food to where it was needed. Captain Maria Garcia commanded a wolf pack of small, fast ships that specialized in commerce raiding. The Zephrani have 1 million soldiers, she told her crew. But soldiers need to eat. They need weapons, they need fuel. We're going to make sure they get none of those things. Her ships would appear out of nowhere, destroy a supply convoy, and vanish before military ships could respond. In 1 week, she destroyed more Zephrani resources than their enemies had in the previous 100 years of minor conflicts. The war took an even darker turn when humanity deployed chemical weapons. Not lethal ones, those were banned even in human warfare. Instead, they used chemicals that made the enemy sick but not dead. Imagine trying to fight when every soldier has severe nausea. Imagine trying to pilot a ship when everyone is temporarily blind. The Zephrani had never experienced such tactics. Their medical systems were overwhelmed. Colonel Sam Wilson led the defense of New Eden, humanity's newest colony. When the Korvax landed their heavy assault walkers, massive machines that stood 50 feet tall and had armor that could withstand nuclear blasts, everyone expected a direct confrontation. Instead, Sam ordered his forces to retreat into the forests. Let them have the cities, he told his officers. We'll take everything else. The Korvax walkers were designed for urban combat. In the forests, they were almost useless. Their weapons couldn't target through the trees. Their sensors were confused by the wildlife. And every night, human forces would sneak out and do tiny amounts of damage. Cut a hydraulic line here. Plant a small explosive there. Nothing that would destroy a walker, but enough that they needed constant maintenance. After 2 weeks, half the walkers were non-functional, not from battle damage, but from 1,000 small problems. The Korvax soldiers inside were exhausted from constant alerts, terrified of leaving their machines and running out of food, because humans had destroyed every supply convoy trying to reach them. "We're not fighting their walkers," Sam explained to a reporter. "We're fighting the people inside them. Machines don't feel fear. People do." The siege of Bakara Station showed humanity's patience. The station was a Zafrani fortress with 10,000 soldiers. Instead of attacking, human forces surrounded it and waited. They shot down any ship trying to leave or arrive. They jammed all communications. They even played loud music at random intervals to prevent sleep. Captain Helen Rodriguez commanded the siege. "We can wait years if necessary," she announced to the station. "You have maybe 3 months of food. Your choice." When the Zafrani tried to break out, they found that humans had turned the space around the station into a maze of mines, automated weapons platforms, and booby traps. 20 ships tried to escape. None made it past the first kilometer. The galaxy was learning that humans didn't just fight wars differently. They thought about war differently. For most species, war was about honor, about proving superiority. For humans, war was about winning, and they would use any method, any tactic, any strategy that worked. The Battle of Hollow Reach demonstrated this perfectly. The Selenite Confederation had sent their most elite fleet to destroy a human supply base. They expected to find cargo ships and fuel depots. Instead, they found Captain Alex Brown and the Cyber Warfare Division. Alex had turned the entire base into a trap. The moment the Selenite ships arrived, their computers were infected with viruses, not violent ones that destroyed systems, but subtle ones that changed small things. Navigation was off by just a few degrees. Weapons targeted just a little to the left. Shields flickered for just a fraction of a second at the wrong time. The Selenites thought they were winning the battle. Their ships reported hitting human vessels, destroying installations. But it was all false data. In reality, they were shooting at empty space, while human forces picked them off one by one. By the time they realized what was happening, 3/4 of their fleet was gone. "The scariest thing about humans," the Selenite commander transmitted in his final message, "is not their weapons or their ships. It's that they make you doubt everything. You can't trust your eyes, your sensors, your allies, even your own thoughts. They don't just defeat you, they make you defeat yourself." As the war continued, other species began to notice something terrifying. Humans were getting better at it. Every battle taught them something new. Every enemy tactic was analyzed, countered, and turned against them. The humans were learning faster than anyone could adapt. General Martinez received reports of 16 more systems falling under human control, not through conquest, but through surrender. The mere threat of human arrival was enough to make some planets give up without a fight. The psychological victory was becoming as important as the military one. "Sir," Colonel Smith said, reading a report, "the progenitors are mobilizing. They're calling this a threat to galactic civilization itself." Paul finally smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Good. Let them come. We've been holding back our best weapons. It's time to show them what total war really means." He looked at the strategic map showing the entire galaxy. Humanity controlled less than 1% of it. But that 1% had the entire galaxy terrified, because they were learning that humans didn't need to conquer everything. They just needed to make the cost of fighting too high to bear. "Send a message to all human forces," Paul ordered. "Phase 3 begins now. No more playing nice." If the galaxy thought the first month of war was horrifying, they were about to learn that humans had barely started. The war had been raging for 2 months when the galaxy truly understood what human creativity meant in warfare. Admiral Susan Blake stood before a gathering of her senior officers aboard the USS Retribution. The room was silent as she revealed humanity's next phase of operations. "Ladies and gentlemen, our enemies have united against us. The Korvax Empire, the Selenite Confederation, and even the ancient progenitors have declared us a threat to galactic peace." She paused, letting the irony sink in. "They destroyed our colony, murdered our children, and now they call us the threat. Today we show them what human imagination can do when turned to war." Captain Alex Brown from Cyber Warfare was the first to present. He was young, only 28, but his understanding of information warfare was unmatched. We've been inside their communication networks for years. They use quantum encryption they think is unbreakable. They're wrong. We broke it 5 years ago. We've been reading every message, every plan, every secret. He brought up a hologram showing the enemy fleet movements. They think they're being clever, gathering at these 5 staging points for a massive coordinated attack. What they don't know is we've been feeding them false intelligence. Half their fleet is heading to attack decoy positions. Empty space we've filled with sensor ghosts. The Korvax had landed on 3 human colonies expecting easy victories. They brought their heavy walkers, their elite troops, their best generals. They did not expect Captain Danny Thompson and his gray ghosts to turn their own strength against them. On the colony world of Haven, Danny watched from a hidden position as a Korvax patrol moved through an abandoned city. The aliens were confident, their weapons casually held, joking among themselves. They had faced no resistance for 3 days. Now, Danny whispered into his comm. The street beneath the Korvax patrol exploded, not with bombs, but with foam. Instantly, hardening foam that trapped them up to their chests. They struggled, their weapons useless, their strength meaningless against simple chemistry. Danny's soldiers emerged from hidden positions, but they didn't attack. Instead, they set up cameras. "Smile for the galaxy," Danny told the trapped Korvax soldiers. Everyone is about to see the mighty Korvax empire defeated by construction foam. The video was broadcast across every network within hours. The psychological damage was devastating. The Korvax, who prided themselves on being warriors, became laughingstocks, their morale shattered. Lieutenant Katie Anderson had perfected an even more insidious tactic. Her unit specialized in what she called ghost warfare. They would infiltrate enemy bases and leave signs they had been there. Nothing harmful at first, just moved objects, strange smells, sounds in the night. But over time it escalated. Korvax soldiers would wake up to find human words painted on their walls. Their weapons would be disassembled and reassembled incorrectly. Their food would taste different. "We don't need to kill them," Katie explained to her team. "We need to break them, make them jump at shadows, make them distrust everything. A paranoid enemy is a defeated enemy." The results were devastating. Entire Korvax units refused to leave their bases. Soldiers shot at each other by accident, thinking they were human infiltrators. Command structures collapsed as officers accused each other of being compromised. The Selenite Confederation, a hive mind species that shared thoughts, discovered that human creativity extended to biological warfare. Not deadly diseases, but something far worse for a hive mind. Captain Helen Rodriguez had overseen the development of what humans called the doubt virus. It was a simple concept. Humans introduced a biological agent that slightly altered selenite brain chemistry. It didn't harm them, but it made individual selenites question the thoughts they received from the collective. For a species that had never known individual doubt, the effect was catastrophic. "Watch this," Helen told her bridge crew as they observed a selenite fleet. On the screen, the alien ships began to move erratically. Some turned left, others right. Some accelerated, others stopped. The perfect coordination that made them dangerous was gone. "They're arguing with themselves," Helen explained. For the first time in their species' history, they're experiencing disagreement. They don't know how to handle it. Within days, the Selenite Confederation recalled all their forces to deal with what they called the madness. Their entire society was collapsing as individuals began to think for themselves for the first time. But it was humanity's approach to the progenitors that truly horrified the galaxy. The progenitors were ancient, possibly the first spacefaring species. Their technology was so advanced that they were considered almost godlike. They had ruled through respect and fear for 10,000 years. General Paul Martinez authorized the deployment of humanity's most creative weapon, the nanobots. Not the violent kind that consumed everything. These were far more subtle. They infiltrated progenitor technology and made tiny changes. A navigation system would be off by millimeters. A weapon would fire a microsecond late. Shields would fluctuate by less than 1%. Individually, these changes meant nothing. But in combat, they were devastating. The progenitors, who had relied on their technological superiority for millennia, found their perfect systems failing in small but critical ways. Captain Maria Garcia demonstrated another human innovation during the Battle of Crystal Nebula. The progenitors had sent their most advanced ship, a vessel that could supposedly adapt to any attack. Maria smiled when she saw it. "Launch the Paradox torpedoes," she ordered. These weapons were humanity's cruel joke on advanced AI. They didn't explode. Instead, they transmitted paradoxes, mathematical problems with no solution, logical loops that had no exit. The progenitor ship's AI, trying to solve these paradoxes, devoted more and more processing power to them. Within minutes, the most advanced ship in the galaxy was floating dead in space, its computer frozen trying to determine if the statement, "This statement is false," was true or false. The creativity extended to ground combat as well. Colonel Sam Wilson had turned the defense of mining colony Vega 3rd into a nightmare for Korvax forces. Instead of defending the cities, he had evacuated them and turned them into traps. Every building was rigged with something different. Some had gravity reversed, sending Korvax soldiers falling to the ceiling. Others were filled with hallucinogenic gas that made the enemy see their worst fears. A few were simple, just speakers playing the sounds of human children crying, which somehow was more terrifying than any weapon. "Humans are insane," a captured Korvax commander said. "They turned our strength into weakness. They made us afraid of empty buildings, of silence, of our own shadows. They don't fight wars. They create nightmares." Captain Jake Patterson revealed perhaps the most creative weapon: boredom. He had trapped a Zephrani fleet in a stable time dilution field. To them, only minutes passed. To the universe outside, weeks went by. When they finally escaped, thinking they were rushing to a crucial battle, they found the war had moved on without them. Their reinforcements were meaningless, their plans obsolete. "We didn't defeat them," Jake explained. "We just made them irrelevant. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make sure it doesn't matter anymore." The propaganda war was equally creative. Lieutenant Amy Chen had created false footage of Zephrani leaders negotiating surrender. The videos were so perfect that even Zephrani couldn't tell they were fake. Trust between their military and government collapsed. Half their forces refused orders, thinking their leaders had betrayed them. "Information is a weapon," Amy said, "and humans have been perfecting lies for thousands of years. We call it fiction, entertainment, art. But in war, it's just another tool." The galaxy watched in growing horror as humanity deployed weapon after weapon that had never been imagined. They used music as torture, broadcasting sounds at frequencies that caused physical pain to certain species. They used art as weapons, creating visual patterns that triggered seizures in Korvax soldiers. They even used food, introducing human cuisine to enemy troops knowing that certain spices would cause allergic reactions. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect was how humans kept innovating. Every day brought new tactics, new strategies, new horrors. The enemy could never adapt because humans never did the same thing twice. Admiral Blake received a message from the Progenitor High Command. It was a simple question. "What are you?" She responded with humanity's history. Every war, every conflict, every time humans had found a creative way to destroy each other. She showed them chemical warfare from World War I, nuclear weapons from World War II, biological weapons from the Cold War. She showed them humans had been finding creative ways to kill for millions of years. "We are the species that weaponized the atom within decades of discovering it," she transmitted. "We are the ones who turned diseases into weapons and then into cures. We looked at the fundamental forces of the universe and asked ourselves, how can we use this to win? You thought you were fighting soldiers. You're fighting engineers, scientists, artists, and madmen, and we're all very, very creative." The response came 12 hours later. 3 species requested ceasefire negotiations, not because they were losing militarily, but because they were terrified of what humans would think of next. General Martinez looked at the reports of enemy forces retreating on. The morning of the final battle arrived with an impossible sight. In the Andromedan neutral zone, 4,000 enemy ships had gathered. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Ships from 12 different species, united by their fear of humanity, ready to end the human threat once and for all. Against them stood 300 human vessels, outnumbered more than 13 to 1. Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, studying the tactical display. Her officers were silent, waiting for her words. The entire human fleet was listening. Back on Earth and its colonies, billions watched through live feeds. This was the moment that would decide humanity's future. "Open a channel to both fleets," Susan commanded. When Lieutenant Amy Chen nodded, Susan began to speak. Her voice carried across space to every ship, every planet listening. "6 months ago, you destroyed our colony. 12,000 humans died, men, women, children. They were farmers, teachers, doctors. They came in peace. You answered with violence." She paused. "We warned you then that Earth was holding back. You laughed. You called us weak. Today, you face the truth." The progenitor fleet commander responded, his ancient voice filled with authority. "You are outnumbered 13 to 1. Surrender now, and some of your species may survive as servants. Continue this madness, and humanity will be erased from existence." Susan smiled, though the enemy couldn't see it. "Let me tell you something about humans and odds. At a place called Thermopylae, 300 humans held off hundreds of thousands. At Rorke's Drift, 150 humans fought 4,000. At the Battle of Britain, a few hundred pilots saved a nation from an empire. We don't calculate odds, we change them." She nodded to her weapons officer. "All ships, execute Operation Gordian Knot." What happened next defied every rule of space warfare the galaxy knew. Instead of forming battle lines, human ships accelerated directly toward the enemy at maximum speed. The alien fleet, expecting traditional combat, prepared for a ramming attack. But at the last second, every human ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving something behind. The enemy sensors screamed warnings too late. Each human ship had dropped a package that created a localized space-time distortion. 4,000 enemy ships suddenly found space itself twisted around them. Ships that were kilometers apart were suddenly occupying the same space. Others were stretched across dimensions. The lucky ones were merely torn apart. The unlucky ones were trapped in temporal loops, dying over and over again. In less than 30 seconds, 1,000 enemy ships were gone. Captain Lisa Monroe commanded one of the assault groups that re-emerged from hyperspace behind the confused enemy fleet. "Fire everything," she ordered. Her ship unleashed weapons the galaxy had never seen. Gravity bombs that created micro-black holes. Quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple dimensions at once, impossible to dodge. Nanoswarms that converted enemy hull plating into more nanoswarms. The battle was not a fight. It was a demonstration. Every human ship fought differently, used different tactics, different weapons. The enemy couldn't adapt because there was no pattern to adapt to. Captain Jake Patterson showed why humans had studied their enemies so carefully. His ship targeted a Korvax dreadnought with a specific frequency of sound waves. It seemed ridiculous until the Korvax crew started screaming. Humans had discovered that frequency caused excruciating pain to their species. The entire crew surrendered just to make the sound stop. Captain Helen Rodriguez used psychology as a weapon. Her ship broadcast the dying screams of the Zephrani, who had destroyed the human colony, recorded from their own communication systems. Then she transmitted a simple message. "You started this. We're finishing it." The Zephrani fleet's morale shattered. Half their ships tried to retreat, but General Paul Martinez had prepared for that. Jump points out of the system suddenly became minefields. Not physical mines, but something worse. Each one was a transmitter that hacked into escaping ships' navigation systems and sent them random places. Some ended up inside stars. Others materialized inside planets. A few lucky ones just ended up lost in deep space with no fuel to return. On the USS Defiance, Captain Maria Garcia demonstrated why humans had been pretending to be weak for so long. Deploy the Trojan Protocol, she ordered. Suddenly, dozens of enemy ships turned on their own allies. For 30 years, humans had been selling technology to other species. All of it had hidden programming, waiting for this moment. Weapon systems, navigation computers, even entertainment devices became human weapons. The Selenite Confederation's hive mind tried to coordinate a response, but Captain Alex Brown had prepared for that too. He transmitted a single thought into their collective consciousness: doubt. Not about the battle, but about existence itself. Are we real? Is this happening? Are we already dead? For a species that shared every thought, shared doubt was paralysis. Their entire fleet stopped moving, trapped in existential crisis. The progenitors, ancient and proud, tried to rally the fleet. Their commander's ship, larger than most human cities, moved toward the Retribution. Its weapons could crack moons. Its shields had never been breached. Admiral Blake watched it approach. Deploy the mirror. It was humanity's cruelest weapon. Not a physical mirror, but a quantum reflector that turned the progenitors' own weapons against them. Every shot they fired hit their own ship. The harder they fought, the more damage they did to themselves. It was poetic justice. They were literally defeating themselves. Impossible, the progenitor commander transmitted. This violates the laws of physics, Susan responded calmly. Humans have been violating the impossible for our entire existence. We flew before we should have been able to fly. We went to space with computers less powerful than a modern watch. We split atoms with equations written on blackboards. Impossible is just another problem to solve. The battle turned into a rout. Enemy ships fled in all directions but found no escape. Human vessels appeared everywhere, using micro-jumps to be in multiple places almost simultaneously. It wasn't just superior technology or tactics. It was the human refusal to accept defeat, to accept limitations, to accept impossibility. Captain Danny Thompson led boarding parties onto enemy vessels. But instead of capturing them, his teams did something worse. They changed things, moved controls, reversed labels, altered life support to uncomfortable but not lethal levels. Then they left, letting paranoia do the rest. Enemy crews refused to use their own ships, terrified of what other surprises humans might have left. Lieutenant Katie Anderson perfected psychological destruction. She hacked into enemy communication systems and played recordings of their families begging them to surrender, except the recordings were fake, created by AI that had analyzed millions of hours of audio. The enemy didn't know what was real anymore. 3 hours into the battle, something unprecedented happened. The Korvax Empire, the Selenite Confederation, and 4 other species simultaneously announced their unconditional surrender, not because they were losing, though they were, but because they finally understood what they were fighting. We thought we were fighting a young species, the Korvax Emperor transmitted. We were wrong. We were fighting the culmination of millions of years of evolution on a death world. Every human is a weapon. Every thought they have is a potential tool of war. They don't just defeat enemies, they make enemies defeat themselves. The progenitors held out the longest. Their technology was still superior, their ships still powerful. But they made one crucial mistake. They threatened Earth directly. Admiral Blake's response was swift and terrible. All ships, initiate Protocol Omega. Humanity revealed its ultimate weapon, not a bomb or a beam, but an idea. Every human ship began broadcasting the solution to faster-than-light travel directly into space. Not just how to do it, but how to do it wrong. How to turn any ship into a universe-ending bomb. How to crack planets with a miscalculated jump. How to turn stars into weapons. Stop, the progenitor commander begged. You'll destroy everything. Yes, Susan replied simply. That's the point. You wanted to erase humanity. We're showing you what happens if you try. We'll teach every species, every pirate, every madman in the galaxy how to end everything. You'll spend eternity trying to stop the knowledge we've just released. Or you can surrender now and we'll help you contain it. The choice was no choice at all. The progenitors surrendered. The final casualty count was staggering. The combined alien fleet had lost 3,000 ships, Hundreds of thousands of casualties. Entire military traditions destroyed. And humanity had lost 17 vessels, most from mechanical failures rather than enemy action. Captain Lisa Monroe summed it up perfectly. They expected a battle. We gave them a massacre. They expected honor. We gave them horror. They expected us to fight by their rules. We don't even fight by our own rules. As the surrenders were formalized, General Martinez addressed Earth. Today, humanity has proven that we are not victims. We are not weak. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us every day, and we conquered it. We are the species that turns everything into a weapon, including peace itself. We offered peace, and it was rejected. So we offered war, and it was unstoppable. The galaxy learned that day why humans had hidden their strength. Not